Hi, Peter.
Hello,
Hello, how you doing? Your turn, cameras.
I'm very well.
Yeah, this is Kende speaking. How are you doing?
Oh, Kendi, I thought you were not there in person.
Oh, no, no, no. I'm in Nigeria for the conference.
That's awesome, awesome, awesome. Good to have you on ground.
Thank you. Attend this. Okay.
Are we good? Are we set?
We're just waiting for one. Yeah, okay. So promote this person to um panelist, yes. Just give me a minute. I'm trying to make sure I will join the webinar. Okay.
Yeah. Did you get my email about the timing thing? Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes. I got your email.
Okay.
Hi, Aki. The two camera, I see. Yes,
Yes.
306. Are you the one? Yes, I also. So, yes.
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, I can hear you, Akin. Yes.
Aki, can we hear you?
Oh, great, great.
But I don't know if people
Yes.
on the in the room can hear you.
You should be fine. I know, but that's fine. Okay. Are you guys
Am I
good?
audible enough?
Sorry?
It's actually if it's audible
Oh,
enough.
yes, you're
I
audible
said,
enough.
am I
Yes, I
audible
think
enough?
for you to enjoy the internet, I think it is best if you put up your video and just present, right? So that if your network is stable. Do you,
All right, all
yeah.
right.
So, good afternoon, sir. How are you doing? I think that's supposed to be voting here. Yeah, 306. 306, sir. 308.
It's 306, sir.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, could you shut the door?
I have to look more and more. I know you again. Remember they look back at you.
Okay, so we only have both of you presenting now. We're just waiting for people to come in. If we wait for the next 5 minutes and people don't come in, I think we'll just kickstart the conversation. Is that okay by everyone?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, right, right, great.
Yeah. Everybody got my email, right?
Yes, but
You mean
I
the
needed to
last one
clarify
or
if
which one?
The last one, the very last one I sent.
I got the
Demanding
last
for
one, but I was
the
asking if we have up to 18 minutes or the new 15 minutes, if at all.
I think we would have up to even more than 18 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, since it's
Thank
both.
you. Thank you. That would be gracious.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I could see my prof in the house, Kenny.
Yeah.
He's Professor Badede.
Yes, he is.
Oh, I'm delighted.
Hello,
And I
Professor
think I'm
Bode. Good
seeing
to see
Miriam
you,
too.
Professor Bode.
Wow, that's wonderful.
My greetings, Prof.
Oh, my wonderful friend, I'm seeing you two here. Great.
Peter, I greet you.
Yes, Prof.
Okay, Peter, can you please resend me your bio quickly?
It's in the last email I sent to you.
Yes, but I'm not able to view it.
Okay, I'll resend it now.
Yeah, just as a body of the mail. Yeah, you can see me there.
Okay.
Okay, I have it. Don't worry. You're good.
Okay, great.
Okay, so we can start now. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's going to be a small conversation, and we know that people will join us. I recognize my undergraduate supervisor, one who taught me, Dr. Bodil, you're welcome. Professor Bodil, yes, the director of the Innovation Program. We have Aki, Atoyebi Aki, and Peter. So Peter will go first. Peter is a theater and performance practitioner researcher with a background in dramatic theory, criticism, and applied theater. He holds a Bachelor of Art in Theater Art from the Golden State University, Anambra, now known as the Prince Abubakar Abiyu University, Audu University, a Master's of Art in Dramatic Theory and Criticism from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and is currently a Commonwealth Scholar pursuing a PhD in Applied Theatre, Arts, Action, Change at the University of Warwick, UK, United Kingdom. He is a playwright, recipient of the 2024 Society of Nigerian Theatre Artists Sponta Olu Prize for Playwright, and his research interests cut across theatre, performance, dramatic literature, and applied theatre. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Peter. Peter, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm pursuing an MA in applied theater, not a PhD. I'm trying to share my screen and it doesn't allow me to share sound.
Try now. How is that now? Could you try that again?
Yes,
Please try now.
I'm trying now, please.
Okay.
Yeah, it allows me to share, but I was asking if I could share sound. It does not give me the option to share my sound, and I was going to play a video.
Okay, sorry, let's check that.
I'm not able to select the admin can allow to play sound over the presentation.
Would you try now?
Okay, 1 minute. No, I still can't, so I'll just go ahead without it. I'll go ahead without it then. Thank you very much. This is my slide up now.
Yes, please.
My presentation is titled Manner of Writing and Mode of Rendering Drama Text, Sociocultural Implications for a Tonal African Language. I'd say this is an abridged version of a longer research article that has also developed or been inspired out of my earlier master's degree research in dramatic theory and criticism at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. And my specific focus here is on the Igala language spoken or domiciled in Kogi State, Nigeria, spoken widely in Nigeria, in Kogi State, spoken widely in Nigeria and other parts. So as a sort of background, in a continent like Africa that comprises diverse ethnicities, tribes, languages, and tongues, it is never surprising that that quest for an appropriate language of expression was a foremost concern in the history and development of the continent's modern literature. So a notable aspect was the manner of transferring text from orality or oral literature, which was the continent's dominant pre-colonial form of literature, to then English literacy, which emerged relatively later, contributing to the institutionalization of modern African literature. Now, if I see this quote from Okbehu in this particular anthology that I have shown here, and she notes that in the development of modern African literature, from oral tradition, African writers saw it as their primary duty to dress African oral literature in a European language in such a way as to bring out poetic quality and something that could be original. But the end of it is that their own translations sounded just as un-African as the ones that the Europeans did. Now, the clause on Africanness or un-Africanness arising from the use of English then became a bane for describing what authentic African literature should be. And there are several dialogues and debates historically on that. For example, Chinwezu asks this question I have shown here, but to paraphrase Chinwezu on this note, we also mean to ask, maybe, should we have modern literature in Africa or modern African literature? And if you apply it to drama, it will definitely be the same. So scholars like Adeseke have argued that the age-long debate and diatribe on language usage, including those by Wole Soyinka, especially on his call for the use of Kiswahili, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Wali, and the rest of them, that all of those are expected given the nature and the coverage of the phenomenon, and of course the caliber of African writers in all genres of literature. If we bring this down to the Nigerian environment, we also have seen that it is almost nearly impossible to advocate for the use of any single Nigerian language in drama or in literature. This is unfeasible and is a result of Nigeria's multi-ethnic status or the consequent multiplicity of languages and dialects, and on a larger scale, the question of wider accessibility. Again, the writer of the Nigerian nationality may lack what Sam Ukala has described as the techno-orthographical know-how to write in his or her native language or mother tongue. So as a result of this, we've seen that Nigerian playwrights have over time written their plays mostly in the English language. So given this dominant use of the English language in Nigerian dramatic literature, several scholarly arguments have also endured regarding what qualifies to be termed authentic Nigerian dramatic literature. I've mentioned earlier the African perspective from Soyinka and the likes and Wationgo and the likes. But amidst all of these, it is observable through these past decades that the English language has remained the dominant language in Nigerian drama, especially again as a result of colonial influence and that struggle for wider accessibility or acceptability or readership. But this is also despite the fact that many Nigerian languages are considered endangered and they are progressively under the threat of extinction. As what I have probably observed that could be termed a middle ground, we therefore see several experimentations in the use of the English language, which have surfaced in drama, with attempts to give it some level of indigenous linguistic closeness to the Nigerian society. So such experimentation results in the categorization of the English language from several perspectives. Scholars like Olagunjo have mentioned things like the Standard English, the Nigerian Standard English, the Pidgin English, the interference variety, and many kinds of Englishes, to put it that way. So the interference variety manifests in the influence of the mother tongue in the English language, which kind of bets a new kind of language, what Adeoye has referred to as a corrupt form of English language and a hodgepodge of local indigenous language, idioms, vocabularies, and accents. So most times we therefore see experiments with the Igbo, Yoruba, the Hausa, and many other languages in dramatic works that are written in the English language. So a few examples in some Nigerian plays is what I show here. This is from Kurumi by Olarotimi, where he shows that, and we begin to already see issues of inadequacy of translation and what I described earlier as referring to Ukala as a lack of orthographical knowledge to write in the mother tongue, and then the limitations of translation. So he says, he mentions this Yoruba term that he says the closest English term is compound, but even this term falls miserably short in portraying the sacred pictorial essence of what that term is. I'm trying not to pronounce so I don't murder it. Then the second example is from The Gods Are Not to Blame by Ola Rotimi. And then there's also an example here from Soyinka's Death and the King's Horseman, from which we begin to see the limitations of orthography, the limitations of translation, and the dynamics that you could observe from how mother tongue is being used side by side, drama texts that are written dominantly in the English language. So the manner of these experiments, if they are not properly done, may lead to complexity in interpretation and contribute to loss of meaning, especially in the reconciliation of words, phrases, or sentences within the dramatic context and the sociocultural reality portrayed when they are used. More so, most Nigerian languages are tonal, and they are informed by their orthographical provisions, and they have their meanings affected by how the words are spoken in different contexts, dependent on tone, dependent on tone marks, diacritics, and all of those that orthographical provisions could have guided. I should have played some examples, but it seems I am not sharing sound, so you might not be able to hear. Can you hear my sound?
No. Well, go
Can
on.
you hear the sound from the video?
No. Go on.
No.
So I'll just go on. So I was going to show two videos here with Yoruba examples on TikTok, which shows how one single word, for example, can have multiple meanings depending on how it is. pronounce. And a simple example here is war. So somebody asks what's war in Yoruba, and it's Ogun. And then he asks about 20, and he says Ogun. Then he asks about medicine, and he says Ogun. He asks about charm, and he says Ogun. Then she asks about sweat, and he says Ogun. Then she asks about inheritance, and she says it's Ogun. Then God of iron is Ogun. And yeah, it is long, Ogun, and the likes, so on and so forth. I might not have pronounced them well because I'm not Yoruba myself. So these experiments, as we see them with local languages, in plays written dominantly in the English, are challenged by limitations in the orthographies of some local language. My scope here is the Igala language of Kogi State, as I mentioned, but it's spoken widely across Nigeria and other parts of the world. And these are the key questions I ask. How then are playwrights who are from or who write based on the Igala cultural background using the Igala language in their plays, which are written mainly in the English language? This sociocultural context necessitates the involvement of conventions, principles, and methods underlying the Igala language in its written form. I analytically examine the modality for the conveyance of meaning and the reflection of the Igala sociocultural worldview in these Igala situated plays, arising from their employ of language involving sometimes the use of the Igala language and other times they are close and, like we saw in the example I showed from the Yoruba perspective, imperfect English translations in the plays that are largely written in the English language. So it's basically a qualitative analysis that I did, and I make reference to the plays I've identified here because they are written from the Igala perspective or based on deep-seated Igala sociocultural ground. So my analysis basically is asking that question: how is the Igala language deployed? How are they used in these plays? What I find across the plays I've mentioned from Emi Idegu, Ahmed Yerima, and Jacob Oneku is that the manner they are used is in a form of cultural loan, maybe loan words, phrases, sentences, code mixing, code switching, and their close translation. So in my analysis, I deploy what Koban, as I show here, has described as intrasentential and intersentential code switching. So though my argument is slightly different from what Koban has described here, approaching my analysis from this perspective I found it really, really useful. And that is what I've seen here. So he categorizes sentential switching into extrasentential switching, intersentential switching, and intrasentential switching defines, and the definition as I've shown on the slides here. So in the context of this article, the usage of loan words and phrases in the plays drawn from the Igala language could be categorized into the sentential, based on what I have shown, what I now adapt into the sentential, and the dialogical levels. So including what I now also adapt into the intrasentential, which occurs within a sentence, intersentential, which occurs beyond the sentence, intradialogical, occurring in dialogue between characters, that's interdialogical, and intradialogical, which occurs within a single character's lines. My apologies, the first one is interdialogical, then intradialogical. All right, so at both the sentential and dialogical levels, I have now identified examples where we could see this usage in the sentential level on my left in Idegu's play, in Yorima's play, and another play by Idegu, and the dialogical level by another play by Idegu. And this goes on and on too long in the play that I might not be able to show all of the examples because of time. So at both the sentential and dialogical level, as quoted in the instances here, what is clear is that language usage here is within the context of scene description and establishment of local. I'll touch more on more functions as I go forward, but this is also something I found useful in the analysis, which is these assertions by Wolf and Lotman, which imply that the text of drama, while dictating the template of dialogue, has other intricate meanings and responsibilities, such as defining the space of action and locale. The text of dramatic dialogue also contributes significantly to the modeling of the world recreated in drama. This includes that textual elements have causal effects on social life, an argument that Fairclough has made in 2003. And in their writing, deploy language. Then significantly, language also must be seen as action. And action is a vital element in drama. There's therefore a necessary alignment between the text of dramatic dialogue, sociocultural representation, and dramatic action, because the written text is a major instructional template for its rendition in performance or stage action. As I begin to move to the end, these are some of the functions I have identified in the manner of the usage of the language, which sits somewhere in between not adopting any orthography because of issues of standardization, issues of multiple dialects, and all of that. So because the language is used, the mother tongue component used in the dominantly written play in English perform some of these functions through contextual uses. So they establish local, they help for character definition. Sometimes they are used for exclusion, solidarity, and identification, and this happens between characters, either to exclude some characters or to show solidarity with characters, or as a means of identification with some characters. And then the depiction also helps in the portrayal of some of these other elements in realization of those works in performance, such as costumes, props, stage lighting, music, and dance. All of this must be established from a core and rich indigenous Igala worldview, which also should be brought in what Biodun Jeff has described as close as possible to the greatest truthfulness. However, the extent to which these functions can be performed with sociocultural depth then rests in what I mentioned earlier that Ukala has described as techno-orthographical know-how, that is, the ability to effectively deploy orthography in the writing. So these, together with issues of standardization of orthography, pose limitations. And the limitation of the orthography, like I've mentioned, is the issue of standardization, especially amidst one language with variety of dialects, which now becomes a problem about which should be accepted. So as I conclude, the way that they have used the Igala language to a good extent closes that gap between the authentic representation of essential cultural aspects and the need for a global accessibility of Igala dramatic literature by extension, I mean African dramatic literature now, of course. So language usage in this manner serves to explain specific cultural phenomena. It enables direct African coloration and integration while avoiding obscurity through in-dialogue translation, gesture-based stage direction, and then the complementariness of the given context of dramatic action where they are used, so used such that if you do not understand the language, by the context of the usage of that mother tongue input, you will understand by context of dramatic action. So to effectively deploy an African language such as the Igala language in drama, which is written in the English language for these purposes, the mastery and technical know-how of conventions that are central to written and spoken communication in the other language involved is highly required. Then the mastery of orthography, especially of tonal language, is a category where most African and in closer terms, Nigerian languages belong, would enhance appropriate representation in text and interpretation on stage. Such mastery eliminates the tendency for readers and actors to approach such local languages with structures of the more popular English language. One of the texts I have examined shows examples of inconsistency where there was an attempt to adhere to the given orthography, which now becomes inconsistent in terms of its usage because of issues of standardization, and then a lack of acceptance by some other dialects within the same tribe. So with the consciousness that literary drama in the English language, at least from my observations, has come to stay and is waxing stronger in Nigeria, expert techniques to deploy the local language while maintaining clarity are perfect watchers against Wale's inquisition of a dead end of African literature written in European languages. The onus now lies on dramatists to employ these techniques, including cultural loans, code switching, and code mixing, with artfulness to ensure that their usage does not end in obscurity or antithesis to the dramatic context or sociocultural background presented in the drama. So like the orthography of the Igala language, which is, as I've observed, in their need of standardization, education authorities and stakeholders for the development of native orthographies must intensify efforts in collaboration with government and experts of concerned native languages and their dialects to produce a standard and acceptable orthography usable in drama as drawn from the people's natural speech pattern. And for the Igala orthography, for example, within the context of writing this article, I've had an interview with an authority, an Igala language studies authority, who has confirmed that currently the orthography is not standardized. They have realized the need to make paperwork for that standardization. They have made presentations to necessary government authorities, which is in process, but for a long time has not received attention and that standardization. So that's my submission. I welcome questions and contributions when due. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll take questions after the second presenter so that we can have time to have a robust conversation. So we'll move on to Akiatoyebi.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Do you want to share your screen, sir?
Hello.
Do you want to share your screen, sir?
Oh, yes. Kindly do that. Yes, yes.
You're already opposed, so you can try now.
Okay.
You can share your screen.
I find it somehow difficult, probably because it is in slide, PowerPoint. Is it possible from that end? I think I've sent it to you.
Share your slide from there.
All right, let me try again.
It's from him. He's a panelist. And he's a host. Okay. I already made him post. He's a panelist already. I promoted him on the anchor. He's from his
So
side.
try share your slides.
I know he's from his side.
I don't understand all these things. I'm trying to share it, but it's...
While you're on that, let me read his bio. Atoyebi Oluwafemi Akinlawon is a researcher at the Center for Performing Art and Film Studies in Education. He is also a lecturer at the Center for Human Development and Long Life Learning, Osun State University, Osogbo, Nigeria. He is interested in the dramatic literature, verbatim, and autobiographical theater, Black diasporic, performance studies, cultural studies. We have Aki. Aki, over to you.
Okay, please. I find it difficult to do that.
Okay, I think what
I don't know if it is.
I'll try to share your slides with
Okay, while you do that, I think I can continue.
Yes, you can.
Okay, the title of my presentation is Character Naming, Autogenesis and its Cultural Implications as Prognosis to Interpreting Bode Ojoni's Death in the Mask. Looking at the presentation outline, I have the abstract, the introduction, naming among Yoruba as a system of recodification. I have another subtitle on cognitive dissonance theory and theory of intentionality. And I also have synopsis of death in the mask, and again, followed by textual analysis. Without wasting much of our time, in the abstract, I try to look at the way African dramatists employ character naming in their dramaturgy to create critical semantic effect beyond christening phenomenon for mere labeling purpose. Drawing from the African cultural right of naming and its essentialism, it explicates the consciousness and implication of character naming against what Gannat Dore termed autogenesis, a self-renaming act. It appropriates nomenclature at different levels as consciousness targeted towards different motifs. Without wasting much time on this abstract, let me quickly move to introduction. In my introduction, I start by saying that in African cultural milieu, the practice of name and naming is a consciousness that speaks to the communal belief in the idea of predestination, fate, and destiny in relation to the intangible world. In fact, it is a practice that is done with special and material effect for the attributed spiritual beliefs and values, which underline the intentionality that presupposes it. Also, although both animate and inanimate objects are often christened for certain spiritual and ethereal purposes, but the naming of animate objects, especially human beings, is considered a ritual of necessity to bridge or connect the intangible worlds of the unborn and that of the living. As a continuum, using Soyinka's word, a cyclic movement of beings within the triad worlds of the dead, the unborn, and the living. Naming and name is considered as harbinger of hopes, failures, wishes, expectations, and even cause. The bearer is considered carrying or transporting to manifest. I'm now at the introduction stage. That's slide 4. Okay, considered carrying to or transporting to manifest in the tangible world of the living. It is against this background that naming owes its complexity, giving the authorial will and advantage to the conferrer over the bearer. And this is often the cause of conflict when the bearer realizes or grows into the consciousness of his or her appendage as a weight of another's pleasure or limit experience. That's citing Amanda Stuart Fisher's 2020. The point of conflict is the state where meaning enjoys the name bearer's reflectivity, which brings about its refraction. It is the point of consciousness of the consciously imposed appendage, carrying by the vulnerable bearer when he is just starting his journey into his own consciousness through the consciousness of others. It is within this leitmotif of naming, its cultural meaning, and attendant conflict shaping the society and its cultural practices that this paper examines the creative, ethical, and political deployment of name and naming by Ojoni in Death in the Mask. Now, slide 5. Titled Naming Among Yoruba as a System of Recodification. In Yoruba cosmology, there exist 3 worlds of the living, the unborn, and the dead. That's Wole Soyinka's exposition. It is within the worlds that the beings are believed to revolved, returning to the earth to create cosmic balance. In the course of this transition, naming and name is seen as an esoteric appendage that speaks to the fate of the returning, the newly born, as desired by the living. Also, it is considered to signify the returning positionality in the world of the unborn, and likewise, its affiliation with. Please, I'm moving to the next slide. Please, hold on. I open the kind of. Please, kindly give me a few minutes. Please, can you
share your screen now?
You are able to share your screen.
You're able to share your screen.
We can see your screen, so could you do that now?
Okay, yes. Please help me to move to slide 5.
I was the
you
one
have to
trying
share
to
your
help him
screen,
share.
sir.
Can I go?
Okay, I can share my screen now.
Yes.
I was trying to assist him share. Can I go ahead to do that?
Yes, please
Yeah,
do
if it's
that.
possible,
Kindly
you
do.
that.
Please do that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll share. I'll share now.
Okay. I will continue now. In Yoruba cosmology, there exist 3 worlds of the living. Thank you so much. I'm at slide 5.
Is this live? No?
Slide 5. Is that not?
Name among Yoruba spells.
Naming, yes. Thank you. In Yoruba cosmology, there exist 3 worlds of the living, the unborn, and the dead. As according to Storinka, it is within this world that the beings are believed to revolve, returning to the earth to create cosmic balance. In the course of this transition, naming or name is an esoteric appendage that speaks to the fate of the returning, the newly born, as desired by the living. Also, it is considered to signify the returning positionality in the world of the unborn, and likewise its affiliation with the world of the dead. In high hope of reception and eternal desire, the living often codify their wishes into an appendage to midwife the delivery of the baby's fortune while living. This appendage, among other things, is a sign of communal acceptance and support to live his or her days. In the words of Leka and Sesson 2019, naming is material nodes of the social network. By implication, name presents itself a junction where the sojourner of the triadic worlds meets his acceptance of the living. Again, name is also better seen as a tangible anchor through which the living holds themselves in the contested politics of survival. Now, 6, I use the cognitive dissonance theory and theory of intentionality, but quickly on cognitive dissonance theory. As developed by Leonard Festinger, an American social psychologist, cognitive dissonance theory explicates the consequence of holding 2 or more conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes. It explains descriptively the discomfort and tension that arise when individual is caught in between a mutually contradictory impulses. The point of interest of this theory lies in how it describes man as a conflict-ridden entity who is capable to own up to the knowledge of his oddness as resident in his beliefs, values, and attitude in his environment. This is similitude of Sartre's thesis on consciousness when he avers that consciousness is the consciousness of itself. By this, he projects man as a reflective entity capable of reaching self-evaluation and by implication refraction as he wills through his action towards an end. Point of connection of this theory to the study is its location of characters' conflicting beliefs, values, and attitude. It affirms that it cannot be divorced from its social environment. In fact, it is safe to say that at this point that its point of recognition of and of his contradictory value and attending frustration, desire to change can be appreciated extensively when attention is paid to its social and cultural environment. On the theory of intentionality, as developed by Ojoni in 2012, the root of dramatic conflict is traced to the 3 existential factors of natural world, circumstantial to reality, and biological traits. It is believed that dramatic character arrive at his or her action and inaction after an interplay of factors in text analysis. And character being at different level of apprehension as allowed by the factors. Dramatic characters act differently to text as they reach out to the external world differently. It is within the chain of interaction between the factors that the understanding of characters feel and hope are located as individual character projects meaning to the external world. Through is internalized text as conditioned by the external text, as well as the theory is considered potent for characters conflict analysis. It can also be used to decipher the creative crisis of the playwright in playmaking, opposition and signs, and of signs and signification in different marking and elimination. While the cognitive dissonance theory will be used to examine dramatic character in their dissonance in relation to their struggle to choosing their authentic action and life within the contentious social expectations, the theory of intentionality will be employed to appreciate the process of name as a fraction of playwright's choice of characterization. Now moving to the synopsis. I will not waste too much on the synopsis. In a dramatic twist set in a fast-paced action, Oselu was vindicated in the murder case that involved Ojetunde. He ran his lorry over Ojetunde while he was in a sacred mask. Through a skilled but cultural logic that essentialized the spirituality of the masquerade court, Oshelu outwit Ojetunde's family's claim of his gruesome killing of their son, Ojetunde. He claims to run over a spirit in a mask and not the living. And as we know, death is an exclusive passage of only the living. The intrigue of the crisis and, of course, the play lies in its motive to expose the religious and political dissimulation practices in Nigerian nation. Still in the mood of celebrating its mischievous victory and its diverse acceptance and rejection from different sects, the play gives way to several revelations of Oselu newly found Abete as a place of fellowship and its some of his fellow. It is through the reenactment of the several revelations that we see Mama Shekpe's experience of betrayal by the church, where she was alleged of witchcraft and consequently exorcised. The revelation of Oselu past experience was also portrayed. He, a former lay preacher in an Orthodox church, was rejected from preaching, having experienced a politically motivated attack. Sorry, I wrote attack, where cutlasses were used upon him, and yet he remained unscathed. Several of the characters carried similar experiences, why they found Abete as a place of fellowship where fellows exhibit expected sense of love, support, and care expected in an ideal religious setting. Thus, abate their sheer reckless and heinous living. They keep dreaming of an immunized Abete from the claws of law. However, at the turn of events, Abete continued to be plagued by Frank, a new incorruptible law enforcement officer, given the responsibility. Now, moving to the analysis. The name and naming of certain characters such as Oshelu, Ojetunde, Mama Shekpe, Opalamba, Igodon, Ajangburu, Oriente, and among others, etched and echoes catastrophe that awaits the fictive socio-political world of the play. The connotative and denotative meaning of Oshelu, literally translatable as communal piloting, being a major figure in the plot, is a sign in the signification of the operational world of the living. Considering his fears of experience, he was a late preacher who participated in active and despicable politicking. He carries the consciousness of his name that establishes him as a part of the living to reject the direct involvement of Ojetunde's mask, the representation of the word of the ancestor. In the brutal politics of living, his rejection and exoneration, albeit controversial, signpost the involvement of anarchic word Abete, signaling the disequilibrium and imbalance, I wrote balance, sorry, expected in the communication and mutual respect that exists in the triadic world. Ojetunde, in this situation of naming, embodies the characteristics of the returnee who returned from the world of the ancestor to the world of the living. As a symbol representing the breach of the Gulf, he is considered trapped and helpless to meddle in the affairs of the living, considering his vulnerability. His performance of masquerading and political motivation to hinder the opposition party from their outing is too costly to be seen as coincidence. Eventually, the change of the world order as seen in the contentious world of the living seems unfavorable for the ancestor, and this resulted to his death without any corresponding punishment for his killer. Mama Shekpe is also an embodiment of frustration and hope. She gets frustrated by sheer betrayal, experienced where she expected safety, but later found solace in Abete, a similitude of Fela Nicola post-Kalakuta Republic. Now, concluding, the study explores the cultural implication of name as a prognosis to reading dramatic play. It exposes the facade of naming / name beyond a static appendage to locate dramatic exposition through the lines of cultural apprehension of name as harbinger of purpose through the African triadic words. It sees this characterization as culminating to a new dramatic theory of autogenesis. It concludes that there is a way cultural theory of naming or autogenesis explicates dramatic work to deliver the hidden meaning needed for communal sensibility and development in its will of unprecedented change. Thank you so much. This is where I would like to stop.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Akin. We have enjoyed two wonderful, insightful presentations. Akin's presentation touched on the concept of naming as used by the playwright, Bode Ojoni, who we have here with us. And I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation. On to Peter, who touched on the question, the manner of writing. And I think one way both papers connect is the question of the subject of playwright as it connects to the question of naming and how the playwrights create and how they write and how they name their characters. And it's all interesting that we have a playwright with us and we'll enjoy that conversation. I think one way we can start off this conversation, I wanted to ask Peter, looking at the Igala language, I'm also from Kogi State, so I know the Igala language. Looking at the Igala language, how do you see the agency of the Igala language, the agency of language, as it comes up during the process of creation? And I'd also like to hear Dr. Ojoni's insights. How do you think the agency of language comes to play when a playwright is written? If you follow, can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
Yes, if pointing to Niyo Shitari's work, Yoruba thoughts, English words, the poet journey to the tunnel of two tongues. How do you think negotiate, especially using their own indigenous languages? I don't know. Let's start the conversation from there.
Thank you very much. That's very, very interesting, and thank you, Akin, for your presentation. So in developing my work, I see the Igala language as a group. Marginalized would not be the word to use, because in the Kogi social structure, people like to describe the Igala language as a major language. Let me say one of the major languages in Kogi State. But in terms of creativity, dramatic expression, there are just very few works or persons doing this engagement out there. There are others, but they are not quite close to canonized in the different ways we might define canonization in today's world of dramatic expression. So the few that we have seen, I see them trying to see how the language can show up in the works that they create. So much so that even when they write in the English language and you read in English, it's like writing the Igala language in the English language. But because of the limitations of translation sometimes, where you want to write the Igala language in the English language like I've described, they now find that some of these translations make the expression fall short of the actual expression, because there are certain terminologies, like I mentioned in the case of Olarotimi and Kurumi, that the English language falls miserably short, to borrow Olarotimi's words, very miserably short of reflecting that sociocultural essence, especially like in the Igala works out there, like I've made reference to Emi Idegu, I've made reference to the one written by Ahmed Yerima. You see that the themes these playwrights, the leading playwrights who write based on this culture explore, are so deeply rooted in myth, in oral history, in the sacred wars that happened, in the stories of sacrifices, how people lost their life, so that in their writing, the representation must always be careful of the spiritual Igala world. And how do we express this in the English language is one of the limitations, and then, so like I said in my analysis, I now see them folding into experiments with code mixing and code switching, using the Igala language as loan words when the play is written dominantly in the English language, or even writing in the English language where what is actually written is clearly in the Igala language. The Igala person would know. There's an example in one of the plays, I think the Ahmed Yerimas, on when he says, if a character tells someone, don't you know that the grass has ears? But the ear of the grass to the Englishman in its botanical connotation is just a part of the leaf, because the grasses have ears. But in the regular worldview, the ears they mean is when they say the grass have ears, it means that somebody might be eavesdropping. So how do we capture all of these? These are the experiences I see coming. And then I see that they have now kind of narrowed down to using context of dramatic action as a strategy to make all of this make sense, while trying to stay clear of the limitations of orthography, where orthography is not adequate.
Thank you so much. Prof, you do this in practice, in terms when you are creating. How do you do this in ability?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that I want to say, Peter, well done, and I also want to say, Akin, well done. These are my people. So we've been together. So congratulations to you guys. Actually, Peter, I think your work will also benefit from social linguistics. So if you can get some authorities in that and understand some of the things they say, your paper will benefit a lot from that. But then coming to creating, especially for those of us who have been raised with our indigenous language and now we are writing in English. In fact, you know, like the play Akin mentioned now, that in the verse, that play, I actually had certain problems because there were words, sentences that I wrote in Yoruba, and then I created a kind of English translation or recreation of it. Don't let me really say translation, a kind of recreation, because it doesn't really fit the deeper meanings and then the nuances of the real Yoruba expression that are put in the place. Okay, and you know, I was creating the word of the garage boys. And these are people who don't speak English. And if you have been there among them, in mannerism and everything, the way they carry out their actions, like, for instance, now if you are really like Mama Shepherd, who is Mama Shepherd? What is the meaning of Shepherd? So how do you interpret this now to English? And then the cultural nuances of the environment where Mama Shepherd operates, and then the coming of all these talks that these guys around her to drink, to smoke, it's created a lot of problem for me to capture them in English and then be able to express them. So what we have is just a kind of what we would call imitation. The imitation of the original and not really the original. So I think we always have that problem, and that is part of the problem of being what we call multilingual person, especially somebody who has been immersed and raised in a particular language before you now begin to learn the second language. And as it has been said, I can't really say now at this point whether I directly think in English or I directly think in Yoruba, but I think it has matched. Okay, at a point it has really matched, because before I used to first of all think in Yoruba before I tried to translate to English, but now it's I've passed that stage now. Yeah, I'm no longer operating at that level where I have to first of all think in Yoruba, but then when I'm writing, it still comes naturally to me some things in my original language, and then I want to see how I can recreate them in the English language, in the English expression. But then I think it's part of the paradoxical or the irony of the post-colonial subject. And I don't really know how we'll get out of that crisis, that conflict. But sincerely, I'm one of those who believe so much in going back to indigenous language. If you are there now in Europe, you see all those European countries as small as states in Nigeria. They teach their children and raise their children in their mother tongue. So, but you know, we have problem in Africa. We always think that we won't be able to communicate with the Ghana people if we are speaking Yoruba to teach them, or the Ghana people. But I don't think that argument is just. It's just that we don't have political leadership that has foresight and understand the purpose of education. Because I tell you, today, more than 90-something% of our people have been excluded from functional language and functional education as a result of language. Most of those who even claim that they are professors of language in our university, do they really understand the depth of those foreign languages they are using? So this is the problem. If a professor is still struggling, even with the language he's teaching, the foreign language he's teaching, then where does a mama longer or a yalonger or anybody in the market, where do they appear? How do we take care of people like that? So as long as we are hooked on these foreign languages, forget it, we will continue to exclude a large number of our people from having functional education. Maybe I should stop.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just to add to what you said, I think also this book by Edwin Goffman, The Performance of Everyday Life and the Practice of Everyday Life. I'm forgetting the second person. No, not here, but of everyday life, which might help in terms of understanding, and that's speaking to Athens people in terms of the question of naming someone like Mama Shekwenu, in understanding the performance of that name within the space it exists.
No, if it's about naming, if I want to make comment on Athens people, I so much love the deliberate, nuanced naming of my characters. In fact, the name for me also speak to what they should let be themselves, the way they should carry themselves and things they do. For instance, if you have read this my play, April Fool Play, where I created Belinda Bobosi.
Belinda Bobosi.
So these are deliberate creations to also serve as a kind of metaphor to express certain things that you may not want to. What does it mean? Who is a Bobosi? So what does it mean to be a Belinda? So these are also creative ways of naming, and I think I got this idea from the Incorruptible Church by D. Olu Adegoke or something like that, where he named a particular character Agbalowo Mary. What is the meaning of Agbalowo Mary? This is somebody who takes from somebody who likes a poor. You take from the poor. So collecting something from the poor itself. So he named that character as Agbalowo Mary. And this is a character who was going to exploit a guy who has just graduated and looking for a job. You are demanding a bribe from him. Then I also picked this from Femi Osofiso. If you have read Who is Afraid of Solar Action, there is a particular character there who is Gbọ́nmi ayé lò bí òjò. Okay. And Gbọ́nmi ayé lò bí òjò. Somebody who uses the earth resources as if they are using rainwater. And don't forget, rainwater is free. It comes free and then you just use it anyhow. You don't account for it. But if you are living in a place like desert, where you don't have access to water, you know the value of conserving water. Okay, so here is a character who does not know the value of conserving water because he sees it as something free from heaven. So that is the name. Agbọ́nmi ayé lò bí òjò. Okay, and he represents the corrupt politician in that way. So from those ideas of these preceding playwrights, I also consciously have internalized and deliberately create names that I think will also convey certain things in my view. Thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, regards Peter's presentation, I guess so I'm going to read just out of my mouth. By the time you finish his presentation, I had just one question in my head. Although this is not my home field, I'm not to grammar and so on. But based on the polemics, like of using English and using indigenous languages, and then you are not able to aggregate the meanings, the full meanings, kind of. I was like, okay, so what's the way forward? Like, what's the argument now? But he has already said that I think this is the conversation that will have to go on for a very long time. I don't think we can have a kind of solution. I was trying to, rationalize it in my head. Okay, where are we going from this point? Is it that we should totally adopt the English language without infusing the local languages, or we should just adopt our indigenous languages as a whole. But that's very problematic. It's really problematic, given the nature of the fact that we are in a post-colonial system. If you are adopting your indigenous languages, then the question of popularity comes to mind. If you say you just want to write in the Yoruba language, then how do the world kind of receive it? It is going to be a limited thing for us. And if we say we are writing in English, but by the time you infuse, like the English doesn't capture the full meaning of what we intend to say, doesn't capture the full weight. So I don't know. This is really polemic for me, and I've just been having that conversation in my head, but I guess it's a long conversation. It's going to be a long one.
Yeah, definitely. Peter, do you want to respond to that?
And it's part of the post-colonial crisis. And it's also one of the reasons why I always refrain myself from talking about post. Yeah, because the post creates a problem. It creates a dichotomy, whereas it's a continuum. You can't really separate or put experience in departments. Okay, so I am a product of a kind of paradox, and I must at the end of the day leave that paradox, show it, exhibit it. So there's really no way out of this. So there is really no post, except in historical or timeline discussion. That is when we can really be talking about post. In historical terms, okay, at this point, this ended. But when it comes to memory, there is no post discussion. It's a continuum. It's something that we will continue to engage and engage and engage. Because at what point are we really going to get out of post discussion within historical reality? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, so I think I agree completely with Prof. Bode, and he spoke extensively about it. But I also worry about that question you asked about, okay, so where do we go? What do we do next from here? And it's really important. So from the primary texts I've studied, my observation based on my presentation, as I said earlier, is they have found ways. I don't know if it is tacit or it's a result of my interpretation or if it's intentional, but the patterns I've observed is that they've found ways to bring in the mother tongue, their languages, into the plays written in English, and then make the meaning expressive in context of dramatic action or through dialogue. So somebody was talking in one of the plays by Idegu, and he asked the king, the king mentioned that his Otogbo is torn, Otogbo being in his native language, and the person is speaking to response, your royal dress, torn. So without the king mentioning that Otogbo means his royal dress, the dialogue of the other person makes it clear that, oh, what he mentioned is his royal dress. And that's what I was trying to analyze in terms of dialogical use of the loan words. It doesn't solve the problem, but it's a pattern I've observed that these playwrights have used to kind of handle it, bringing meaning into context of dramatic action. But again, that is difficult to always achieve. And then where this is done, there's now also the problem of orthography. So the little ones we are imputing, how do we write it, especially in languages that have varieties of dialects? So like you've rightly mentioned, is an ongoing discussion. I like Professor Bode has said, it's a crisis of the post.
Also a way of temporarily resolving their own tension and their own conflict. Because there is also that conflict. I've read the Wingugi, how in his revolutionary reaction to the language of colonialism, he decided that he was going to start writing in Kikuyu, and then he started writing. But at the end of the day, he was exiled to the same place that he said he was not going to use the language. So he went there, was he speaking there in Gikuyu and the rest? So even the system stifled what he wanted to do and frustrated him out of that environment because they felt that people also you want to. And this again begin to raise the question of popular culture or popularity when we begin to talk about play creation. How can you really be popular if you are not creating the language of the immediate environment? How can you be popular among your people? You can only be popular among the elites, among the whites who then have access to whatever you are writing, but among your people who should be mobilized, because by the time we begin to look at plays as instrument of mass mobilization for social change, and now the people that are supposed to have access to the language and understand what you are saying don't have access to it, then how do you mobilize them for social change? And this is also part of the problem. The political elites don't want you to use that language of mass mobilization. And that was why Nguru was then incarcerated. And then he had to run for his dear life. So it's a problem, but as I said, it's also a manifestation of the conflict and ongoing conflict in the individual player. How he or she tries to negotiate that delicate balance of being popular among the people, writing in their own language, and at the same time also writing for international audience. Because at the end of the day, too, just as she has said, you also want your work to go out there and be appraised. Because you don't just want it to, you don't want to write and then it's just left in one corner, nobody can access it.
People give some other ideas and I don't know. Might not be really related to it. It's something to take out of this room for further discussion. Because even at this age, as you're talking about the language of popularity, what is the language of popularity among the masses? You agree with me that the Gen Zs and what have you now don't even understand the indigenous language. They can't talk less of even it. I don't know if you get the perspective from which I'm fighting from again now.
I think also the question, the question, the concept of mobilization stands strong within our conversation about language. And when we are mobilizing, we must communicate in the way the people we are mobilizing should understand. So if we are writing for the Gen Z, then I think we should write in Gen Z's language. However, there's also the question that if we are going to write a question,
what is the percentage of the
scope? Yes,
especially when you go to the market?
Yes, we need the factor of mobilization.
Factor of mobilization of the grassroots. What? The Gen Zs are just those who go to the university or those who have a minimal secondary school education.
And if we're looking at, and if our focus is to gel social change, we have to look at actors, we are mobilizing actors, we are mobilizing actors who can make that social change. So we must speak to people who understand that language of mobilization. I think so.
Yes, I think I just have one comment for Abby. Beautiful presentation for both speakers. I think I might have missed that out, even though I was struggling to, relate. But of course, I think I've been able to get to know some things out of this presentation. I quite have some issues, and I think it's probably because this is just the presentation. We don't have the full paper. Aki was actually making so much analysis, so much references to Shoika's work. But he told us that he was using two theories, the theory of intentionality and I can't quite yes. But if you were,
cognitive dissonance.
Around those triads, level of existence and all that, which we know is something peculiar to Shoika's work. And again, I was looking at you, elaborating on what these theories you were using actually mean, but like I didn't see anything on the theory of intentionality. I guess so. I think probably they should be. I want to believe they could be in your paper. So I personally don't know anything about theory of intentionality.
I think the trial that was talking about actually was to explain the fact that that cultural naming has implications. And that this implication also is connected with the way they perceive the world, the relationship between the three entities. It is just in that level or at that level that it was talking about. Okay. But as for intentionality, I will leave it to
Yes, but for a layman like me, who doesn't perhaps know
Okay.
I want to learn.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. As a student of the theory of intentionality, the gods of intentionality is the one sitting beside you anyway. But I know that you deliberately left me to say something on it. As far as intentionality is, a potent theory to discuss or analyze the frustration, or let me say, the action of individual dramatic character. It is so funny to also see even the dramatist, as a victim or as a subject or object of his work, because as he is picking, characters, picking their roles, is also, should be used, to be seen in the process or in the similar conflict.
Are you saying I'm the
in the similar conflict in the similar conflict. Okay, let me quickly speak to what Miriam said. I used two different theories, the cognitive dissonance theory. And this theory, even though it is not a literary theory, but it is a kind of sociological theory. I'm trying, because all plays, or let me say, virtually all plays are sociological in nature. It is an attempt of the playwright also engineering in society. And the beauty or the connection of the theory with my work is that it shows, it locates the frustration, it locates the disparity and the frustration of individuals' characters within their environment, physical and psychological environment. But when you talk about intentionality, I see the use of names as a deliberate intention, just like he has said. It's a deliberate intention, but beyond, as a reader, beyond what he sees or what he meant, I see that this is where the Soyinka of a thing comes in. You won't believe it that Ojetunde, it's not accidental that he is the one inside the mask and he was run over by Oshelu. For me, Oshelu stands as an individual in this contemporary period who is desperate to rule his life, to have a say, to engage in a very despicable and heinous crimes as far as political, economic, and social life is concerned. And you will see the connection that from Soyinka's perspective, that there is supposed to be a kind of cyclic revolvement or communication between the three words. And it is saying something very fundamental, that the question is this society, is this contemporary society really ready for the involvement of the ancestor? Because I see the Ojetunde mask as interfering in the political, matter of the living. And this Oselu of a thing is like a Gen Z that you have just mentioned. They are not in any way giving any consideration to the ancestor. The ancestor should hold themselves, and therefore he killed this ancestor and he got away with it because of his claim that the ancestor is a spirit, and the spirit has transcend the punishment of death, and therefore he should not be seen as a killer, but rather as a liberator of the society because of their own political dream, vision, and plan. So I don't know if I tried in answering or exposing, exploring or explicating what Miriam wants to actually hear. But going back, hello, I can't hear.
of intentionality.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the issue is that within the discourse of intentionality, the argument is that there is no action, no human action,
Yes.
whether spontaneous or reflective, that has no underlying purpose, intention. Okay. So, and of course, we argue that within intentionality, even things that you think you are doing spontaneously is because you have been predisposed to doing it as a result of historical development and your circumstances. Okay?
Yes.
Don't forget that one of the claims in intentionality is that every automatic action is a product of forgotten intention.
Intention, yes.
Every automatic action is a product of forgotten intention. So there is really no automatic action that is not that you have been predisposed to take. Okay, so that is the underlying argument.
Thank you, Prof, for the contribution. Please, sorry, thank you for the contribution. And if you hear what is said now, you will see, because I'm reading meaning to why he will allow Oshelu to go unpunished. He is the cultural deconstructionist. I think, in a way, he is disposed to allowing culture to be changing. So please don't give us this useless thing of cultural continuity. There must be a review to it. Sorry, that's what I want to say.
Yes.
Don't mind me, I'm not trying to learn here. I think in the point theory that we are talking about, this idea of the do you necessarily have to meet the author? You know how it's as if it's and technical to be better it's what's the death of the author. You know, you're supposed to analyze the text as if your author does not exist. Yeah. But now your author must be alive because if you are working with the intention of the author, right? So it means that anytime you are deploying this theory, can I just pick a random text and try to use it, or I have to be able to speak with my playwrights to ascertain the intention behind?
I think no. I think what we have is completely. I did my PhD on crisis of consciousness in the selected play of Yerima and Suluzofuwa. And it was actually from that point of view that I started reading the intentionality of the author from the characters they have created. Okay. When I was asked if I was going to interview Ahmed Yerima, I said no. I will not interview Ahmed Yerima because the other person I was studying that. So will I go to agree to go and speak with them? So I said, no, so I'm not going to speak with Yerima. So, but I want to say that this is the mind of Yerima, this is the intention of Yerima from the characters they have created. Yeah. And I did that. And funny enough, Yerima came to Ilorin to come and examine master degree. He saw my thesis on the table. Ah, who is this person that did the work for me? I didn't know him. He started reading. You know what he did? He gave money to my supervisor to photocopy the whole thesis that he had never seen such a work on him before. Okay, so the point is that you can read the intention of the author without speaking to the author from the characters he has created or because the
essence of the naming thing.
Yeah, because also the playwright's intention is reflected in the character's words and actions and inactions. And you can thereby begin to understand how he feels that this action should be performed in their conversation. Peter, please.
Yes, I think it's a very interesting turn it has taken, especially with the mention of how you can know the mind of the author, probably interpret it without interacting with the author. Now, I remind Akin, I have been on an almost 40 minutes call with Akin, and our discussion was about Professor Bode and the ETC of Idego.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
So from that context, I was also, so what I'm trying to observe is in the process of now knowing the mind of the author by engaging with his characters, I feel there is an extent to which what you think is your reading of the author's mind from his characters, there's an extent to which it remains the reader's interpretation. Yes. And does not enter into the territory of the mind of the author. It was my challenge in an argument. I have a co-authored chapter in the ETC, the new ETC book, Professor Bade.
Yeah.
And that's where I was also mentioning that maybe it's Idegu, as against Roland Barthes' argument of the death of the author, is Idegu kind of
Well, Peter, I think we should also be thinking about the readers or the critics' intentionality, which is part of what I did in one of my papers published in Germany. Aki knows about that paper. The myth of the death of the author.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's actually a myth.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, too, the critics seem to also have his own intentionality. The readers have his own intentionality that he or she is also bringing into the reading. And I have dealt with a lot of issues in that paper. I hope we get it and read it.
Example, I am here. I should be able to get this paper from you.
It's not gonna worry.
Okay, so we have like 5 minutes more to wrap up.
Essentially, I want to say that this is one of the sections that I've really enjoyed most since this conference since yesterday. Yeah.
So the session continues on
Thank you.
on Friday.
Thank you.
Last part continues on Friday, and we'll have other presenters present. I think my last question that I will bring up is, within the field of dramatic literature or drama, what do you think are the pointers to the new directions that we should have in the field in terms of shaping the field and determining the future conversations in the field?
Well, I think the first thing I would say, just as Aki has noted and some people, I am somebody who believes that culture is not static. And I'm always appalled when people say this is about culture. One of the questions I've been raising is that, is man created by culture or is culture created by man? Between man and culture, which one predates the other? Now, so for me, culture has become a tool in the hand of the hegemony to manipulate people. So we must then continue to deconstruct culture, re-engage culture, and then recreate culture. Nobody should continue to tell me that I have to go to the palace of Emir and go about to reborn Emir. How is he an Emir? What makes him an Emir? Okay, so when you talk about royalty, why is this family a royal family and my family is not royal? So this is an issue that we must begin to re-interrogate and re-engage. Okay, especially when we say that we want a republic and we want a functional system. Some of these so-called royal fathers and so-called cultural systems have become bodies, negating and holding people down. Especially when we begin to talk about women now. There are so many cultural practices and traditional practices or religious practices that are still being used to hold women down. And as far as I'm concerned, as an artist and as a writer and as a self-confessed activist, I must continue to discuss culture. I must continue to interrogate culture, and I will never accept that a culture has created me or made me.
So I will take Aki and I will take Peter. Aki, what do you?
Okay, thank you for that very wonderful and good question. I think following or joining my voice with Dr. or Professor Johnny, it is important that we critique also the playwrights and even literary creators begin to look into how we can use our art to better the situation of this country. We need to speak into even the things that are considered sacred, because from the line of learning that I have been taking, I see that any research, any literary research, any creative research that is not solving human problem, either it doesn't matter the delicacy or the delicate aspect it is lying, it will lie in the library and it will be carrying dust, or let me say gathering dust. It is important that we go out all day, beyond the how can I call it now, beyond the description of the Western world, to come, just like what Peter was saying now, even though we are caught up in globalization, but yet we can still engage in communication by looking into the language of our communication, of our creativity, in order to reach out to the majority and to reach out to every individual. Because what I believe that when communication takes place in any form, either literary, media, or any form, it affects our life, it affects our thinking, it affects our development. So let me stop at that point. Thank you.
So much. Peter.
So thank you very much. So I'll take it from the perspective of my article again, like I've said before. I mean, for a long time, the talk has been on indigenous language, European language, since the time of Wathiongo. Even Chinwezu titled this article, Prodigals Come Home, and it was inviting everybody to come home. I understand Prof. Bode's point about how culture is not static, but in terms of representation, ownership, and identity, I'll say the new direction for me would be to continue to think about how much we can retain that which is authentic to our identity looking forward without getting lost in the tide, but still being able to reach wider accessibility, especially in an age of so many decolonialities, or in the words of a recent conference I attended, what has now become an abuse or a misuse, uses and abuses of decoloniality. Thank you very much. The last one, Prof. Bode, I'm still looking forward to the play we saw in Abuja for showing at 90. I'm still looking out for it in print. The one where one character slept from the beginning to the end. Yes.
Don't worry, it will come out.
Shadows, something. Yes.
Yes. On that note, thank you very much, please. Thank you, everyone.
Miriam, you have something to want to
No,
add?
no. I think
On that note, I want to thank you all for having an interesting conversation. We did not have the numbers, but I guess we're able to
It's more
hit the
interesting,
nail
yes.
on the head. And I think it also validates the fact that it's not really about numbers.
No,
It's about people. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for a very important conversation.
Peter, thank you very much.
I'll see you on the soon.
Thank you.
having a conference at
Yes,
work.
sir.
I didn't know that it is at Warwick. There's an ongoing conference, or is this starting tomorrow on women in contagion?
Yes, are you attending?
Yes, I will be attending virtually.
Oh,
Okay.
please, what's the name, Ma? I'd love to connect.
Mariam Salaudin.
Can you say that again?
Miriam Salaudin.
Mariam Salaudin.
Gotten. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can always be in contact now. Take contact and begin your culture.
I'll get your email from the booklet.
Yeah.
And send your message.
Please do.
Thank you all. I'll see you.
All right, Peter.
I'll see you when I see
Concluding
you.
part of the panel.
Actually, please hear this paper.
Yes, sir.
Read and learn.
Okay, sir.
Thank you. So this is great. Like, this is great.
Well done, Akin.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Well done. Your
Bye-bye.
presentation is highly regret.
Yes,
Thank you.
I